folks. We are back again at this wildly anticipated World Series game between two of the biggest rivals in the league. We are just half an hour from the first pitch. The stadium is packed, the fans are wild, and there is a huge tension in the air. The Giants fans are anticipating their team doing a bit better this time, and the Athletics fans are anticipating another win from their team. We are awaiting the... What's going on? I think we're having an earthquake. No.
It's 5:43 here at Channel 9 News. I'm Todd Howard, here in the midst of the aftermath of the dubbed World Series earthquake. Reports are now coming in from local seismologists. They believe that this earthquake was a 6.9 on the Richter scale, so it's pretty large. Over 50 people have lost their lives today at this catastrophe, and thousands are injured in the wake of this tremor. There are still aftershocks from this earthquake. These surely will only add to the damages. Here's John Stevenson with further information on this tragedy.
Thanks, Todd. Scientists have now confirmed our earlier finding. It was indeed a 6.9. That's the strongest earthquake that's hit the Bay Area since 1906. The epicenter of this earthquake has been found near the Loma Prieta Peak, although much of San Francisco and Monterey has been affected. So far, the damages reported total just over $6.5 billion. A section of the two-level Cypress Street viaduct over a mile long has collapsed, killing over a dozen people. We have several images of this catastrophe and even have a special interview with a survivor later this evening. Most of the deaths reported were automotive, as there have been several highway bridge collapses. Luckily, Candlestick Park, which held Game 1 of the World Series, suffered little to no harm. Of the many thousands packed within, no injuries or deaths occurred. Of course, the World Series has been postponed and will be resumed at a later date.
Hello. As we continue our coverage of the Loma Prieta earthquake at Channel 9 News, we have an exclusive interview with Ed McVie, who barely escaped the collapse of the Cypress Street viaduct.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. It was the most terrifying experience of my life.
Tell us more. What happened?
Sure. I was crossing the viaduct and there was no traffic because of the World Series, of course. Everyone was either home or at the game. I was going about 55 and suddenly I lost control over my truck. I felt like I had a blowout and I noticed that the road was cracking all around me. When I came to a stop, the truck was still vibrating a lot and I could hear a rumbling noise. Then I caught sight of something in my rear view and saw that the whole frickin' bridge was going down. It was like a giant invisible knife was just coming down and cutting sections one after another. I nearly passed out because I was so terrified.
What a chilling story. How did you manage to escape?
Well, honestly, I didn't really escape, man. I was too terrified to move. I just watched helplessly as the collapsed sections fell onto the road behind me. Then when it got to the section above me, it just stopped for a second. It was quiet just for a moment, then the section in front of me gave way. I still can't believe what happened, and I may have to start believing in something above now.
What a great and terrifying story. As we wrap up our coverage in San Francisco, I want to thank Ed McVie and move on to the final part of our program tonight, an interview with a seismologist who has been studying the San Andreas Fault for years.
Now we have a special interview with Dr. Gechtman, a leading scientist behind the seismology of the earthquake, who's going to tell us what really happened.
Thanks so much for having me, Whit.
Why was this earthquake so destructive?
Well, Whit, the epicenter of the earthquake, which is the point directly above the earthquake, was located somewhere in the Santa Cruz Mountains near the Loma Prieta Peak, away from populated areas. Because the magnitude was registered as a 6.9 on the Richter scale, a fair amount of energy was released and pushed towards populated areas like San Francisco and Oakland. But if the epicenter was closer to denser areas, the destruction would have been much more extensive.
What caused this earthquake to happen in the first place?
Well, as you know, San Francisco and Oakland are near the infamous San Andreas Fault. So according to leading geologists and seismologists at Caltech, the earthquake most likely happened when there was a slip along the fault. This map behind us shows how much damage each region suffered from the earthquake. As you can see from the map, the region that suffered the most violent damage was the region northwest of the epicenter, about 20 kilometers away. San Francisco and Oakland, even though they were farther away from the earthquake, they were still closer to the fault, and that's why it caused more damage in those cities.
Can you tell us about the tsunami that took place after the earthquake?
Sure, Whit. Well, the earthquake triggered a non-destructive tsunami off the coast of Monterey Bay, where the earthquake was the weakest. So the issue extended from the seismic waves more to liquefaction, where the ground was took on like a pudding shape. So the tsunami wasn't as extensive as the liquefaction issue.
This has been local scientist Dr. Gechtman with leading information about the earthquake. Dr. Gechtman, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure, Whit.